If you have students utilizing switches to access digital material on the iPad or computer, using Boardmaker 7 will give them access to books and literacy activities, as well as games to help them learn how to use their switches better. The best part is any Boardmaker activity you create can be accessed by the student who utilizes switches. This means you can create a beginner communication board to see if the student's a good candidate for dynamic display AAC. Let's take a look at how we can turn on scanning access for students so that they can use their switch or switches. Here I've just opened up Boardmaker's Student Center. And you'll see I have the Activity Center chosen over there in the left-hand menu. So this is where I can go into the Access games, and I could choose to have the student play whack-a-mole or do some target practice or some matching or a memory game. But in order to turn on switch access, I'm going to go to the menu up there at the very top left corner. I'll choose Settings, and then I'll choose Access Method from the left-hand side. And now I can see that my current access method is Simple Touch. If we want to use scanning, we'll choose scanning right underneath that. Now I have some other options that appeared for scanning, so I can choose the scan type. Today we'll take a look at one switch auto scanning. Now you'll notice that down in the lower right-hand corner, I have more than one page of settings here. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the arrow. So this is where I decide what Boardmaker is going to look for as far as a switch input. So if you have a programmable switch interface, you're going to want to be sure that the switch interface is set to whatever the switch input is set at. You can also edit this. So if the student has a switch that is typically set to be enter instead of the space key, you can just go into edit and you could choose enter instead. And then just remember to hit OK. And again, you can go down to the lower right hand corner and keep looking at settings. So next we have speed, and you're probably going to want to start on the slower side instead of the faster side when you're first starting with a student. There's also a transition time you can program, a hold time. So if you have a student who accidentally bumps their switch once in a while, you can turn the hold time on to be slower so that that switch will Boardmaker will only recognize the switch if it's held, for example, for 5 seconds. You can choose to have feedback enabled, an enable reset, and you can have it choose to scan back or reset. If we go back over to the left, we can also choose a scan pattern. So you can decide if you want to do row column or column row for auto scanning, or just plain linear, just one item at a time. Below our scan pattern, we have highlighting options. So we can choose to do an outline, an overlay, inverted, and then we can choose the color of that outline. And if we go down to the next page, we can choose whether we want the zoom to be on or off. When the zoom is on, it's going to really attract a student's attention to the item that the scan is on. And finally, back over towards the left, you can choose to turn an audio cue on. And this is nice for someone who needs some more feedback, especially if they maybe have a visual impairment and they need to know what it is they're selecting. And you can have this feedback voice or audio cue voice be a different voice than the student's actual voice output, if you would be using this, for example, as a communication device. And so now we have our scanning options set up here. And so we can go back to the menu and we can go back to the dashboard. And now
Menu. Access games. Emergent games. Math tools.
I'm just going to turn down the volume so it's not distracting us here. So we took a look at some of the access games. Next to access games are some emergent games, and these are just going to help students get acquainted with learning some real basic academic skills and some cause and effect type activities. And if we go back here, we also have the option to go into some of the core first learning tools. And so, for example, if you are studying the word go, we have a folder there for the word go. Students can read a book that has the word go in it. And so you can see the book is being automatically read to us, and then it is scanning so the student can choose whether they want to go to the next page, whether they want to read the page again. So this talk button is nice because that's going to give them some options to comment on the book. So we're going to close that out and we're going to stop it. We'll say stop reading, and now we can get out of that activity. But another activity that goes along with the word go is writing a book. And so if we open that up, this one has maximum support. So they're really going to help the student every step of the way as they write their book. We'll go to the next page. And now you can see the student can write about the school bus. Now we can choose some pre-made sentence. And again, this one has maximum support, so it's giving the student whole phrases to choose from. Moderate support would be giving them the keyboard and also some phrases to choose from. And minimum support would give them just the keyboard to write their book. But those are some of the ready-made activities for your student. However, you can also go way over to the left into assignments. And if you have assigned the student anything in Boardmaker, it will appear here. And so here you can see we created an activity for a student to see if having a dynamic display AAC device might be an option for them. So we started just very simple here, and you can see how it is scanning our activity. So that is scanning in Boardmaker.